Hello, race fans, and welcome to a brand new series here on Simracers World, the Simracers World European Porsche Cup, live here from Hockenheim. My name is Peter MacKay, and joining me for this entire season over the next few weeks is Jack Oliphant. And Jack, we do love a little bit of single make racing, but particularly with these Porsche 911 Cup cars, we should be in for a cracking season.
We should be indeed, yeah. It's a difficult car to drive. I think we've seen that over many seasons, over many years, haven't we, the Porsche 911 Cup car? But luckily, we got sort of some of the best around, haven't we? We run quite a few different Porsche leagues, or we haven't ran one before. This is, in fact, our first ever SRW ran Porsche league, but we have covered them a fair few times, you in particularly, Pete. And we've invited a lot of the drivers who have competed in different series that we've covered, and they've jumped on for this one. So looking forward to seeing how they crack on.
As am I, and well, why don't we start off with our provisional pole sitter at the moment, Ryan Parkins, double Porsche Club of Great Britain sim racing champion. He's currently sitting in the pit lane, but on provisional pole position at the moment, and this is very much the return of the King Hippo.
Yeah, I've heard he's actually pretty handy, isn't he? I think we've covered one. We've covered one of the Porsche Cup GB series together, haven't we? Season 3 opener. I remember Ryan Parkins been an absolute demon for Porsche sport, and obviously you are the walking, talking encyclopedia of Porsche motorsport himself, aren't you, Pete? So I'm sure you'll probably be able to tell me a lot more about him as we go through the series. But you're right, he's here. He's already on a sort of pole position, provisionally anyway. If I butted over a tenth of a second, we'll be able to get you all the best times up at the moment. Paul Reeg, obviously second place, and Gavin Halls, so not too far away. But look, if you have a look at Austin Greatorex and Matthew Crisp, they're stunningly close at the moment, as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen.
They are indeed. Of course, got a number of cars for the Porsche Sport team. Ryan Parkins, Paul Riga, Gavin Halls, Austin Greatorex as well, making it a Porsche Sport 1, 2, 3, 4 at the moment. Fastest lap time at 1:39.786 from Ryan Parkins, but the times are very, very closely matched together. And of course, in this particular type of racing, you just can't afford to make that early mistake, because making it back up again is tough. Because I always find, Jack, that you end up getting a bit of an express freight train at the front of the field when these guys get away at the front.
You do, yeah. I mean, as I said, it's a difficult car to drive, and although we have the best of the best, it's a little bit on a knife edge, isn't it? And if these guys are going just full on, like foot flat to the floor, there we go, it's very difficult to overtake. And even on a circuit like Hockenheim, which does have quite a few heavy braking zones, doesn't it? To even keep with these front guys, overtaking them is a completely different matter.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm a huge fan of this Hockenheim circuit. It gets a bit of a hard rap for some reason in the real world, but I think it's been a super addition to the iRacing platform. Really fun circuit to drive. They've been racing here since 1932. The first race was a motorcycle race back in May 1932, and it's been gradually modernized over time, most notably in 2002 when Herman Tilke got his mitts on it and turned it into what you see today. You've got the modern stadium section there as well. Now, this is the interesting thing about a group qualifying session, because these Porsche 911 Cup machines do kick off a fair bit of draft behind them, so you can really get a tow around. And, well, we're looking here right now at Gavin Halls, who's got himself absolutely wedged behind, I think, now the 104 car. That's a new number.
Chris Walsh, that is.
That is Chris Walsh, yes. So Chris Walsh, who is, and I'm not kidding, a professional bobsleigh racer.
Really? A professional bobsleigh? I think, I'll tell you what, I expected a few sort of CEOs or even racing drivers to jump in when I started commentating. I never thought I'd be commentating on a professional bobsledder in a virtual Porsche Cup Series around Hockenheim. That's not something I ever thought that would happen, but here we go. He's here and he's enjoying himself by the looks of it.
It's kind of like a dream you've had when you've had too much strong cheese before going to bed. It's a bizarre combination, but Chris is a really fast driver, and he actually races in the real world. He races in the SRO championships in America, where he's from, in a BMW. Don't tell anyone. BMW, a beautiful little car, BMW M2. I think he races in an M4 as well, if my memory serves me rightly. But yeah, using qualifying in a group is really, really important because it can give you a couple of tenths of a second. But you've got to kind of, you've done quite a bit of racing, Jack, where draft is important, but you've got to pick the right person to draft with, I suppose.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? You can realistically just end up falling in a group, basically, where you're either not quite as quick as them, so they're inching their way away from you. When your tyres are sort of set up to do your hot lap, all of a sudden you're sort of not really close enough. After a couple of warm-ups, that they may have pulled away from you. Or you've got the other angle where all of a sudden you're behind someone who you're much faster than. And then all of a sudden you're a little bit screwed there as well, because you catch them up midway through a corner, potentially a very fast high-speed corner, which is where a lot of time is gained through the high-speed sort of high-commitment corners, which is where you sort of separate the really fast guys from the, pretty decent but not exactly set in pole position times. And that could be a really dangerous sort of scenario as well, because you want to keep your foot in, but equally you've got to respect that they're potentially on a hot lap as well. So it is a difficult situation. You want to be around someone who's about 3 or 4 tenths within your time sort of thing. So your flying lap is about 3 or 4 tenths within their flying lap. That's sort of the perfect situation. Although, having said that, a better situation would be to have a teammate out there. And there are a whole host of... we have lots of teams here today. The teams only have about 1 or 2 drivers in them, though. So expect to see a little bit of a teamwork here and there.
Yes, indeed. You'll see that them pairing up. And, of course, we'll have inter-team rivalry within inter-team rivalry, of course. We do have a lot of cars from PorscheSport.com here, but they're split up into pairs as well. Looking at Adam McNally on screen right now for Excite Racing, or Zite. I don't know what the correct is. I suppose it's Excite.
I've always said Excite.
Excite, yeah, and that is a cracking looking car actually as well. I do like that. Lots of colours all over the place, but it pulls it off very nicely. But of course, this car, it's strange to say that this car is now a little bit out of date now, because it's the 991 specification. It's a 4-litre engine, flat 6. With just under 500 horsepower, but 485. But of course, we're on to a new edition of this car in the real world now. The 992 edition has made its way into the North America Carrera Cup, the Porsche Super Cup, and various European series. But interestingly, Jack, this is still the same. This is still the correct car when we go to British tracks, because for some bizarre reason, the car is getting another season in the UK this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a bit of an odd one, isn't it? How, for some reason, the Porsche Carrera Cup GB has stuck with the old sort of pattern. But that was a little bit, there was a little bit of that beforehand. My brother used to race in the Porsche Carrera Cup GB, and he used to do some guest rounds in the Super Cup. So we got to fly to Barcelona, and we did some Silverstone rounds and stuff like that, and it was an epic experience from a spectator's point of view. But for Tom, it was actually a little bit different in terms of how to drive the car. He actually preferred the Super Cup car, and I'm not entirely sure what the difference in spec was, but one... in the Porsche Carrera Cup, you could pretty much stand on the pit straight and you could watch them set off. In the Super Cup car, your ears would bleed with how loud those things are when they pull off the line, all 30 or 40 of them at Silverstone. It's absolutely mental. Plus, I think there was a touch more front end as well in the Super Cup car, Tom was saying. So there were sort of subtle differences, but by the sounds of it now, they've gone just full on different, haven't they? They've gone a completely different style for the Americans in the European Series.
It has indeed. I think it's maybe got if I were to guess, if I were a betting man, I would say it's got something to do with Brexit and getting the cars into the country on time. I think that's maybe one particular reason. Or of course, they've launched the Porsche Carrera Cup North America this year, and they got the first shipment of cars. So it could well be just a number of chassis available. Of course, it's a bespoke racing car, the new 992. It will arrive in the UK next year, though, so we'll see what, I was about to say, we'll see Mr. Camish and Mr. King driving them, but maybe not. They might have moved away from the UK Championship by that point. But the new one is a whole new beast. It's on the turbo body. It's a wider body. It's much lighter. It's 70% aluminium rather than 70% steel. Oh, God, that's a 100% barrier there for one of the Sim Stickers cars. Now, who was that?
I'm not entirely sure. I think it may be Mark Woodhouse.
It could be. Yeah, that was a big one.
It's not Mark Woodhouse, is it? Sorry, just as we're starting this, it's always the way, isn't it, in
Paul
round
Gordon.
one.
I think it's Paul Gordon. He's usually one of the... Yes, it was. Number 13. Austin Greatorex won't be happy. That's Austin Greatorex's number. Oh, I love that. Psychology, and he's like, I'm having your number, Austin.
He's already playing the mind games, isn't he? But that is something that is, obviously, you've covered a lot of Porsche for Simracersworld, haven't you? But I've never seen half of these liveries before, so I do apologise if I don't quite get to the right person as quickly as I would like. But I'm hoping that you'll be able to catch us out there, Pete, and hopefully steer us in the right direction.
I shall try. I shall try my best. I'll probably, just like I did to... Chaz was an innocent young man before he started commentating with me. He was so well behaved and professional, and as soon as he started commentating with me, it just descended into nonsense. So I'll try and keep things on the straight and narrow. Since we've come on air, nobody has been able to better the pole time of Ryan Parkins, 139.786, 600ths of a second ahead of Matthew Crisp. So very close up there, and Paul Riga not far behind. And actually, Paul Riga doing a top job, qualifying ahead of his teammate Gavin Halls by 0.02 of a second. And Gavin Halls actually the lead instructor at the Bahrain International Circuit.
Wow, there you go. So he's really flexing his muscles here. Lewis Ward's actually, the reason why we just cut to him is he's just purpled Sector 2. His Sector 1's slightly down, but he has purple Sector 2, and he doesn't need much, does he, to try and crack himself into the top 5 with Austin Greatorex in 5th place at the moment. So let's have a look and see what Lewis can do, even if he is getting a little bit wide. I'm sure track limits won't hurt him too much there. I'm not entirely sure what the track limit situation here is in Hockenheim, whether they're a bit lenient or strict, but he goes straight into top 5, and he's only a couple of hundredths behind Gavin Hall, sorry. Tell you what, it's excitingly close. It's excruciatingly close if you're in the car.
Oh, this is classic Porsche Cup stuff, isn't it? This is, look at those margins on our timing tower. So tight. You can, if you pick up a couple of tenths, you can leapfrog 4 or 5 grid spots, which is obviously not really important. Particularly as well, going into the opening race, you really do not want to be in the kind of eye of the storm, because it really bottlenecks coming through the first and indeed the second corners, going through the Nord curve and down into the now don't laugh at the back, Einfahrt Parabolica.
Even though you said it, I was just concentrating on something else, and all of a sudden I couldn't help myself. I don't know why.
Oh God, sorry, I'm 12 years old, sorry. So yeah, you really don't want to be in the heat of that pack though, Jack. If you can get up the front and get yourself away from the craziness, that really helps.
Yeah, indeed. And actually, the reason why I'm still on Lewis Ward, to be honest, is because he did go quicker in Sector 1. His Sector 2 is about half a tenth down, but his Sector 1 is about a tenth and a half up. So I'm excited to see if he can grasp those extra hundredths of a second as the number 13 Stickers car goes a little bit wide there. Maybe just to let him through. He sort of knew that Lewis was on a hot lap. It'd be interesting to know if any of these guys are actually in sort of Discord chats with each other, or whether they're all focused in their own sort of team Discord chats. I'm not sure how seriously these guys are taking it this evening, but as Lewis Ward comes across the line now, as I said, he was quicker, and there we go. Proof is in the pudding. He's put himself in 3rd.
Oh, up onto the second row of the grid, and only 700ths of a second off pole. Wow. So the top
stunning.
3 covered by, top 3 covered by, in fact, top 4 covered by an absolute smidge. There you go, a tenth. Covering the top 5, in fact. Wow, this is going to be a top championship, because really, if you're within a couple of tenths, Jack, as long as you can run that pace consistently, you can run at the front, because the draft will do the rest.
Well, realistically, these guys might be on qualifying as well, qualifying setups and everything, which is maybe why we're seeing a little bit of loose in the back end there from Jerome Kaiser, I think that was. Who's got off behind the... embarrassed now, isn't he? He's behind the tree. He's trying to hide himself from the camera. Yeah, I think that's maybe why we're seeing a little bit of spins here and there. Obviously, drivers trying to get that extra half a tenth, which can propel them up, to 3 or 4 places, to be honest, for the sort of strength of the grid that is here. But also, it's a 20-minute qualifying, so these guys have had long enough to come in, get new tyres on, refuel, and try it again. So they probably only have about a 5-minute setup, good enough for maybe 2 laps until they pit in again. Race speed may well be completely different, mightn't it? Because we haven't actually seen it. Oh, Kaiser again losing it. And on the back end, these cars are tough to drive. We said it many times. They're very rear happy.
Oh, that was actually very well held there from your own Kaiser. I think if he'd taken a picture of that, that was a crash. But he managed to hang on to it. I do like this paint scheme here. Michael Blake with some Repsol Honda kind of colours along the flanks of that car. That works very well. I can't say I'm a Repsol Honda fan. Well, certainly not since Nicky Hayden rode for them, which was a long time ago. But very cool. I like those colours. That's very nice there from Michael Blake. So we will be about to take over into the first of two races this evening. 2 30-minute races in this championship. So plenty of time to, if you don't quite qualify just right, if you can pick your way through cleanly, there is time to do that. But this is going to be a thriller. I'm looking forward to this immensely. And it'd be interesting to see, Jack, if if obviously Porsche and iRacing appear to be very, very close together. They've just obviously brought along the new 911 GT3R, the FIA GT3 specification car. But I wonder when the new Super Cup car will come on to the service. I think it's the matter of when rather than if, I guess.
Yeah, well, they tend to only roll out 1 or 2 little, well, I say little, quite big additions, to be honest. As the checkered flag drops, we'll be able to bring you the grid as soon as we can. But hopefully, within the next sort of update, we'll be able to have those, because the Porsches do need updating, in my opinion. So here we go. Here is the grid, and I believe you can run it through us for us, Pete.
I will indeed, yeah. So Ryan Parkins, the King Hippo, is back, and he is back on pole position, right alongside Matthew Crisp. Lewis Ward and Paul Riga start from row 2. Brilliant qualifying for Paul. Gavin Halls and Austin Greatorex start from row 3, with Sam Bentham and Carl Sharkey starting on row 4. Miguel Freitas and Chris Wood round out your top 10. Chris Walsh will start from 11th alongside Adam Delmont on the 6th row of the grid. Neil Heckins and Michael Blake make up row 7, with Yako starting 15th alongside Adam McNally. Mark Woodhouse and Ewan Marshall start on row 9, followed by David Fuller and Milan Phaetons. John Barnes and Lee Deemer start on row 11, with Jason Rowe and Jeroen Kaiser starting on row 12. Row 13 sees Luke Holroyd and Niles de Kuiper, with Paul Godden, Wayne Palmer, Craig Schill and Jakub Szymanski rounding out the top 30.
Yeah, hell of a grid, isn't it? Look at that, Pete. It's absolutely stunning. All the liveries. People have made efforts, haven't they, for this series?
Oh, they have, yes, indeed. Some wonderful colour schemes out there as well, and such a bulging grid. They're actually making their way all the way around the back of the final corner. So Ryan Parkins starting on pole position then from the outside of the front row. We're just waiting for our last run out. That's Austin Greatorex. There he is. Nice and on time. And we'll be ready to go. We are about to race in a brand new season of the Simracersworld European Porsche Cup. The lights go out. The revs go up. Out we go! And Ryan Parkins bogs down the line ever so slightly, but is he going to make it down to turn 1 safely? Yes, he does. Matthew Crisp right in behind him, trying to carry as much speed through the opening corner as they can, heading down towards the parabolic. Parkins goes a little bit defensive, and we've got a big crash in the background. We'll come back to it in a moment. But Ryan Parkins getting through just cleanly. Lewis Ward in 3rd, and Gavin Halls up to 4th. Paul Riga dropped back to 7th.
Yeah, actually the top 3 are the only people on the track, really, who haven't actually sort of made any positions or lost any positions at the moment. Paul Riga, you're right, he's dropped down to 7th. But hello, here comes Matthew Crisp on Ryan Parkins. Around the outside, Parkins going heavily defensive. Crisp trying to look at that cutback, and I think he's managed to get an angle for it as well. But Lewis Ward might actually be the man licking his lips as there's a spin in the background, and that's going to cause a huge Constantino effect. And I'm not sure who that was. It's Jason Rowe in the team had solo, and Paul Riga was involved in that one.
Oh no, disastrous start after such a heroic qualifying. Oh no. Oh, that's not good. Oh, dearie me.
That was with David
not
Fuller,
a good. Oh dear, yeah. Oh, that's not a good start for Paul Riga. But Parkins away at the front with Matthew Crisp keeping him very honest indeed. Lewis Ward there for good measure. The thing about Ryan Parkins is he does not make overly aggressive moves. He's a very clean driver as well. So don't expect him to getting into pushing and shoving. But look, good start from Gavin Halls. Started 5th, up 1 position. And crucially, he's away with the leading group. Got past Sam Bentham. Carl Sharkey. Good start for Carl Sharkey as well, Jack.
Yeah, he's up 2 positions, but a hell of a start for Mark Woodhouse. He's up 9 places. from the start. Obviously, probably taking advantage of a few little spins here, there, and everywhere. But the number 83 for Team Mad is absolutely fine. I tell you what, he's pretty much the best of the rest, isn't he? The top 7 have really gotten away somewhat, and in fact, they're fighting quite hard. So let's have a look at Lewis Ward trying to bring it to Matthew Crisp. It's not quite happening because he's going to... in fact, no, he has got it. I thought Matthew Crisp was going to carry momentum and have the apex for the left-hander. But no, he's just slotted in behind Ward now. And Gavin Halls is looking at the inside of Crisp. It could be 2 places lost in 2 corners, but Crisp has the overspeed. He goes to the outside. They're going to go 3 wide into the hairpin. I don't know about you. I don't think I've ever seen this work, Pete.
Well, they somehow get through. Normally when you hear Gavin Halls +0 and Gavin Halls 3 wide, that's never good. Gavin, on the other hand, he leaves absolutely nothing on the table. A former Formula Ford racer, raced with Ben Barker, and the same manager as Darren Turner, believe it or not. And oh, dearie me, a bit of a hard move there from Matthew Crisp, and Lewis Ward has to back out of it, and that allows Gavin Halls through to 3rd place. But all of this bickering is just Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday to the King Hippo, Ryan Parkins. He got married recently. I was at his wedding. Very enjoyable day it was. Lots of beer was consumed. And he's off at the front. And all of this overtaking, Jack, is going to allow him to escape.
Yeah, life keeps getting better and better for him, doesn't he? He gets married, he ends up winning this. He's always fast in the Porsche Club GB series as well, which you cover with Chaz. It's absolutely going hunky-dory for Ryan Parkins at the moment. And you're right, he's got a he's got nearly 2-second gap now between himself and Matthew Crisp. And we've been so focused on what's been happening in the top 7, to be honest. We sort of haven't really looked at all that sort of mess that was the first lap for a lot of drivers, so we will go back and have a look at that. We've got a long time coming, 30-minute race, or 30 laps, I believe, but I think it's probably going to go down to a 30-minute race, so I'll just get that off the session timer for you there. There we go. And yeah, it's been fantastic so far, but here comes Gavin Halls, who's really making moves up the order. He's gained 2 positions. He's just being patient enough just to pick them off, isn't he, at the moment? And it may well be a Porsche Sport, even though they're 2 technically different teams, going for the 1-2 here as Hall slides up the inside. It's Porsche Sport 912 in the lead, Porsche Sport 911 in 2nd place.
Brilliant stuff there from Gavin Halls. Absolutely pristine move. So clean, and makes his way through as they head through Spitzkern up towards the stadium section. Oh, it's Crisp. I thought Chris was going to have a very late move there, and actually that's given Lewis Ward a little bit of the impetus there, and a little bit of a tap to the back of Matthew Crisp's car. Thankfully didn't unsettle it too much. Looking at the number 104 there of Chris Walsh. Good start for Chris. Started in 11th, I think, up to 7th, and he's got a good dancing partner here in the form of Carl Sharkey, who's got his claws into Sam Bentham. So good start for Porsche Sport. They've certainly got strength in numbers, that's for sure. But they're not without their rivals, that's for sure. We've got Lewis Ward in there. We've got Sam Bentham, who's running in the Porsche factory colours. So maybe there's something he's not telling us.
Yeah,
New signing.
I thought you said about Carl Sharkey and then getting his claws into something. I thought you were trying to make some kind of pun or joke there, and I was like, do sharks have claws? I can't quite figure that one out.
That would have been good.
Sunk his teeth into it. That would have been. Come on, Pete, you need to be on
form
here,
mate.
Let
one go. Amateur.
But no, further down as well, obviously we have like about 30 drivers here tonight. Looking back, Paul Godden and Wayne Palmer, both Simstickers driver, they've gained 11 places as well, the 2 of them. So it goes to show, doesn't it, sometimes being patient, crash avoidance, even in such a high level grid like we have here, can be the way to go. And it can be sort of the difference between a maybe sort of back of the field finish to a good mid-pack and a good race 2 starting position.
You can just see just at the back of Chouot, just Jaco van der Plaat making a move there, but can he get it done? Oh, don't think so, not quite. Has to give best to Phaetons and the other Alcantech.com car. And you can see just a couple of cars back there. You've got Luke Holroyd in the Strasse Porsche machine. Look at those lovely colours. I love the Strasse colours, the red and black. Exactly the same as they have on their PCGB real world race cars. They've got a couple of Caymans, a 911. I think they have a 924 as well in these colours. It's either 924 or 944. I can't remember. But anyway, the Strasse, one of the leading, well, the leading independent Porsche specialist in the UK. So if you're in the market for a Porsche, give them a shout.
Yeah, clearly backed by Miller Royals as well, and I knew I recognised it, but it's actually, and I say this rather quietly, but it's not a German manufacturing competitor, but it's because they're Miller Royals, they sponsor the Ginetta Super Cup, don't they, and all of Ginetta's sort of antics in which I used to race for. So I was looking at that car thinking, I recognise it, but it doesn't look right, and it's because it's Miller Royals on a Porsche, isn't it? Which is why it looks slightly different to me. I'm so used to seeing them on the side of a Ginetta, but tell you what, it carries it well, the Porsche, although it carries most liveries well, to be fair.
It does indeed. It does indeed. I bet you went through a few tubs of Miller Oils in your Ginetta days.
No, I went through a hell of a lot of a lot of things basically. I went through a lot of money, unfortunately, is the main thing I went through with all the crashing that I was doing. Mr. Palmer was having a field day with fixing his tyre walls when I was racing. But yeah, luckily I'm not having to do that anymore. I'm just here shouting and talking about it with you, which is much more fun, I have to say.
I'm glad. Well, it's not been a good start to... Whoa! Neil Heckens gets out of the way. Good job. It's not been a good start to the day for Austin Greatorex. I think he was involved in that. Oh, biff. Heckens getting flipped around there pretty unceremoniously, and it causes a little bit of a traffic jam. I'll get it out the third time. It's not been a good start for Austin Greatorex. I think he was caught up in that early melee, and, you know, had a good qualifying, but shows you just you've got to be right up the front if you want to guarantee avoiding any of the problems. So nearly at 1/3 distance, and now.
Sorry, I was just replaying because I was just looking for Austin Greatorex and what happened to him, and he was caught up in the melee on the first corner. Here it is, and it was just a Constantino
nothing.
effect.
Oh yeah, he gets completely buried into the barrier there. He's going minding his own business, and that is just a tsunami of Porsches has just swept him along with him. Oh dear, nothing Austin could have done there. Austin again, a very, very hard racer, but very fair also, and super consistent behind the wheels. So, but he does again have an ally there in the number 911 Miller Oil Strasser Porsche of Luke Holroyd. So, coming up to about 1/3 distance, Ryan Parkins leads. Gavin Halls did put in the fastest lap of the race a couple of moments ago, so he's definitely on the move. And I wonder, Jack, and what spin for Lewis Ward? Oh no! It just shows you just asked for that a little bit too much throttle, and it just shakes its head and said no.
It is a difficult corner, isn't it, that hairpin? It's a heavy braking zone, but actually the more difficult point is getting out the corner, which is why we're seeing so many drivers just step out. And I'm just trying to find it. I took the wrong point to try and reach for my drink, didn't it, as Lewis Ward ends up spinning back round. But we'll have a look as he get the replay here, and it is just asking the throttle. I mean, it's not even asking the throttle that much. He was on the curb, wasn't he? It's not like it was steering lock. He just hit the curb.
It's that little red sort of sausage curb. It's maybe just that little bit less grippy. That shows you how sophisticated iRacing is, actually. Wow. Pity for Lewis Ward there. Now, before Lewis had that little bit of a twirl, Gavin Halls appears to be closing in on Ryan Parkins. He takes about a tenth and a bit out of him that time around. So getting close now to being in the draft range. Usually, as long as you're within about a second, you start to pick up little slithers of it, and that's exactly where the gap is now. So another quick lap from Gavin Halls, and he'll be right onto the case of his teammate Ryan Parkins.
Yeah, I won't keep that statistic up for very long because it can give you epilepsy fits, that can, with the amount of changing in colours where they become sort of just within a second of each other. But I'm just brought up to show you, I mean, now he's about 0.8 of a second away, so that slipstream is worth about 0.2, even as far back as he is at the moment. So if he just keeps that going, you know, he's got another 20 minutes left to go. I think Ryan Parkins, I don't think he'll start sweating because I'm sure he's got great faith in Gavin Halls being a sort of teammate, even if he's not a direct teammate in this particular championship, but he'll know him well from Porsche Sport. I think he'll have faith in it being a hard fight, but these guys, as I said, aren't teammates. It's, you know, they're going for their own glory here tonight, so hopefully we'll see a few fireworks.
Well, let's wait and see. You've got two, it's amazing because you've got two very different drivers here. You've got the super clean, super precise, very, very calm Ryan Parkins, and then you've got the absolute full send James Hunt approach, which is Gavin Hall's approach. actually, the end result is very similar. The lap time is almost identical, as you can see. But they go about the racing in a different way. If Ryan feels he has the pace, he'll just sit there all day long, clocking out quick lap times. But Gavin, even if he feels he's maybe missing a tenth or two, he'll make it up in just pure bravery and just, in first or fence, I think is Gavin's motto. So you're right, Chad. This is going to be quite fascinating to see what the dynamic within the Porsche Sport garage is, if you like.
Well, by the sounds of it, from a spectator's point of view, this is the sort of order that we like to see then. If Parkins is sort of slightly more calmer, he'll be defending, but Halls will be throwing everything at it to try and get past him. 0.3 of a second, but you don't really need me to tell you that because you can see it visually on the screen how much closer Halls is. He's gained half a second, and Parkins has gone wide, and Halls has just taken the apex. Oh, that looked very uncharacteristic there from Parkins. I don't know whether he just let him through or if he missed the braking zone. It didn't look like he locked up, but now he's back on the attack potentially on Gavin Halls.
Yeah, I think that it could be one of two things, and we just won't know until hopefully we'll get a chat with both Ryan and Gavin a little bit later on. But yeah, maybe seeing that maybe Ryan just missed his braking point there. The other alternative is that, again, Ryan's a very, very intelligent driver. He will have seen that Gavin would have been on the way. He knew that he qualified back in 5th, and if he saw his delta coming down, I think there is an argument that he maybe just said, right, you go at the front now and tow us away. I don't know. We will only know. The thing is, you only know what's in the driver's head until you ask them, and even then, you don't necessarily get the truth either.
No, it's almost like the scripted answer, especially if they're racing for someone of some kind of stature like Porsche Sport and their teammates. They're not going to give you the full answer. I had a very interesting interview on Tuesday night with two drivers who took each other off for the lead. They still finished 2nd and 3rd. So all of a sudden we had to bring them in for an interview, and we didn't have enough bleeps in the machine, put it that way. And yeah, we had to cut them off early, unfortunately. I don't think that's going to be happening here tonight, but it's still hopefully going to be quite fun.
Oh dear. Well, I tell you what, it's been a super drive from Chris Walsh from outside of the top 10. He's now up to 4th position in the number 104 Porsche Sport Car. Very, very impressive indeed from the bobsleigh racer. Well, what is it? Let's see. How does it go again? Some people say they can't believe Porsche Sport, they have a racing team. Oh! Sam Bentham was a lockup. Oh my God. Oh dear. Oh, and that's got in the way of Carl Sharkey, who has to get right onto the brakes, pulling up to a full stop. But and that has allowed Chris Welsh a nice bit of breathing space there, but not good news for Carl Sharkey.
No, and just behind these guys, I was about to suspect maybe these guys were going to catch up, but Mark Woodhouse, Miguel Freitas, and Jaco van der Plat are actually nicely caught up to each other here in their own little battle, aren't they? And it's a lot like I was about to compare it. I don't want to do it, but I was about to compare it to Sunday Drivers MX-5 in the fact that anywhere you look, there is always pretty much a battle because there's that amount of drivers out on circuits. We see a car spinning in the background, quite a long way back. I'm not sure who that was, but it is fantastic to see that we could be looking at the fight for 1st and 2nd place, and all of a sudden we think, maybe we'll just go for that fight for the top 10, and that's what we're looking at now with Lewis Ward just ahead trying to recover this race, obviously. Or if we want to go further back and have a look at Johan Kieser in the Team Mad car, all the way down in 24th. This is its own little fight. It's fantastic, although it is quite a bit higher standard than the Sunday Drivers that we cover on a Simracersworld.
Certainly a lot more expensive cars anyway, that's for sure. Now, there's a little bit of team coordination of maybe a slowdown penalty possibly for Mark Woodhouse, but allows Miguel Freitas through. The Team Mad guys, they will definitely be in communication with one another. Of course, both very, very quick in a touring car. Miguel Freitas, former champion in the Simracersworld TCR series, and Mark Woodhouse, the recent AM-Class champion in ARLTC. So, what is it about touring cars stepping into Porsche Cup or vice versa?
Fed up of everybody hitting each other, I imagine, in touring cars. That's probably what it is. Although, having seen what we saw tonight in the opening lap, there hasn't much changed between the two classes.
Yes. But best we keep our opinions to ourselves on that one, Jack. We are live on TV. Oh, well. So, Matthew Crisp leads the podium battle here, the last spot in the podium, but Chris Walsh is all over him. And if Chris Walsh can get by, we're only nearly just gone halfway. So if he can get past Matthew Crisp, that would make a Porsche Sport lockout of the podium. It's kind of like it's almost like Roger Penske in IndyCar, isn't it? He owns the series, he owns a number of cars on the grid, he owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I mean, he's just got the whole shooting match.
I was going to say, that's a man with far too much spare time in his hands, doesn't he? He's just loving life and racing. And to be fair, I think we can all admit we probably would do exactly the same if we were in his position as well, wouldn't he? Turning his hobby into his lifestyle as well. But, I mean, the interesting thing I think about this sort of fight that we're watching now, because again, Gavin Halls and Ryan Parkins, that sort of leveled out to about 5 to 7 tenths of a second per lap, sort of that gap that Parkins is keeping at the moment. But Chris was extremely quick, qualified on second place, remember. Chris Walsh has gained 7 places, and yet he's fighting right here with Chris for track position, you know. And I don't know if that's maybe because Chris has gone out his tyres a little bit more. Maybe he's, I wouldn't say fuel saving probably, because it's only a 30-minute race. They don't need to fuel save. I don't even know if the tyres go off this quickly for a 30-minute race. But it does seem that all of a sudden Walsh, he's just found a little bit of speed, hasn't he? He's found a couple of tenths. Obviously, the slipstream is going to be helping him keep within touching distance. Maybe he's just gotten into the groove. Maybe he didn't do as much practice as he had done before. Or even, he might not have got the qualifying as he goes wide. I'm just giving him all these compliments as Chris Walsh leaves his braking zone to be desired, shall we say, and ends up going wide and just loses out on all the space that he just caught up for Matthew Crisp.
The only thing I think you can do, from what I understand from people who know much better about it than I do, is that you can overheat the tyre quite easily in this car. And I wonder if maybe that's what happened with Parkins, possibly, especially when you lock the tyres up, which is easy to do in this car, of course, with no anti-lock braking system. You can put big spikes of heat through the tyres, and it's hard to then get them cooled back down again. So maybe that's been ironed out a bit with the most recent update. Of course, every 12 weeks, here on the iRacing Simulator, there's a big update with lots of little improvements and little changes to everything, really, the tracks, the cars, everything, and then some new content as well. So we've just had that just a week ago. So this is week 1 of a brand new season. And I have to say, Jack, I'm having a ball in this car's bigger brother, the 911 GT3R. Fully equipped with Kevin Estre Spa 2019 winning livery as well, of course.
Of course, yeah. I mean, obviously,
of course.
Estre, you were actually at the Nürburgring 24 the other week. I was about to say that, did you know Kevin Estre won the Nürburgring 24? But you were there, you witnessed it, you were commentating on it. And that must have been something sensational to see.
It was very special, yeah. I wasn't, unfortunately, not at the Nürburgring. I was in my my home office, or it's also known as the spare room. But maybe, hopefully next year. But yeah, it was an exceptional motor race. Obviously cut quite short with the fog through the night, but the 3.5-hour sprint, was just exceptional, and it just showed you how hard the guys are pushing. When somebody of Maro Engel's quality in the Mercedes had an enormous shunt clashing with the, funnily enough, the Foxtail Manta at the at Tiergarten. So yeah, it was an exceptional motor race, but Kevin Estre really was on. It was one of his kind of golden days, which I think every racing driver has, but he just seems to have more of them than most. But Chris Walsh has recovered a little bit after that little running wide moment. He's still got 10 minutes, so he can bide his time here. I think it's going to be a tough ask if he does get past Matthew Crisp. It's going to be a tough ask to catch Halls and Parkins, as Halls about a tenth and a half slower than Parkins there. So maybe, Jack, is this Ryan Parkins regrouping and ready to fight back again?
Well, I think, I mean, as I said, 10 minutes left. Realistically, it's now a 10-minute sprint race, isn't it, for Parkins and Halls? And I think maybe Parkins was just keeping his car in that sort of optimum zone for longer, trying not to get such a sharp peak in terms of the heat and the tyre temperatures and sort of peak performance in his car. Maybe he was trying to sort of plateau it a little bit more, maybe try and go with some more consistent lap times than Halls is going to be able to do over the course of an entire run. I mean, we don't know. I suppose you just mentioned, obviously, the Week 13 update that happened in iRacing recently. This is obviously, in the background, Chris Walsh has gotten past Matthew Crisp as we cut away to talk about the two leaders. And Chris doesn't seem too happy about that because he's given a flash of light. I'll see if I can bring up a replay of that one. And here he goes. It's rather aggressive look to the inside, but I wouldn't say from what we can see there anything wrong with that one. It looked like a pretty solid overspeed to the inside of the corner and then a nice outbraking.
no clean as you like there. I mean, if anything, Chris had to sort of sneak by. He was given a car's width and a millimeter by Matthew Crisp, which was fine, and then just got the move done on the brakes. That's why I love racing at Hockenheim, because you've got a good draft down that long straight there through Parabolica and down towards Spitzker, which is the hairpin, and you can actually make passes. And it's actually, I'll tell you what's great is multi-class racing here at Hockenheim, because if you're in a prototype and you're racing alongside GT cars, there are plenty of opportunities to get past, and likewise, if you're a GT car, you can make just a little bit of room for cars to get by if they need to. It's a great circuit, really, really good. In fact, I'm not a Herman Tilke design circuit fan by any stretch, but I think this is his finest work, actually.
I was going to say, I mean, you're right, it does get a bit of a bad rep, doesn't it, every so often, but I don't think it's really utilised as much as it should be, although, obviously, it's semi-recent to the iRacing roster, but I would have thought it'd be one of those tracks that just slots straight in. I mean, even MX-5 racing, TCR racing, any kind of sort of open wheel and everything like that, I mean, it would suit the track with the good slipstream. And speaking of slipstream, Crisp is looking up the inside to try and get the overspeed. Walsh maybe saw that one coming, thinking, I recognise that move. I think I just did that one. And now he's fallen victim to it.
What is it? Another song? Anything you can do, I can do better.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, yeah. Matthew Crisp thought, I thought Chris Walsh was going to maybe strike back, but that was a perfect example there. You got two cars, both just slightly different drivers, slightly different speeds from lap to lap, and it shows you that you can make overtaking moves. Now Chris Walsh all over the back of Matthew Crisp, and running a little bit. It's a little bit wide there, coming through the Mobile 1 curve, through the Sachs curve. Brilliant kind of cambered corner there. You can really hook the car in and carry a lot more speed than you might otherwise imagine. So, just over 6 minutes to go here at Hockenheim. Is there going to be a deadlock at the front? Well, Gavin Halls answers back on 142.0, 2/10 quicker than Parkins there, but these guys really stretching it away from Crisp and Walsh. They're battling, of course, slowing them up a little bit. And in fact, there you go, Carl Sharkey actually 7/10 quicker than Walsh last time by.
Yeah, it's, there's 3 seconds between Walsh and Sharkey, but Sharkey has his own fight to think about, doesn't he, in Bentham, just behind Sam Bentham. So actually, there's a very close fight for the top 3, Matthew Crisp and Chris Walsh, for that bottom step of the podium. Then there's a fantastic fight for the top 5 between Carl Sharkey and Sam Bentham that we're watching now, going in towards the hairpin as Crisp looks up the inside of Walsh. I think actually he was defending, wasn't he, from Walsh, because Walsh was still behind and couldn't get the cut back. And obviously there's that exciting fight that may well brew over in the last 5 minutes for the top 2. So awesome. It's making my life a lot harder, finding where to look. But luckily for me, wherever you do look is exciting. So that's exactly what we like to see as a commentator and a spectator and lover of motorsport.
This is what we come for, isn't it? This is what we come for as commentators and as fans, and I'm sure the drivers are having a ball. I bet you Chris Walsh and Matthew Crisp are having a whale of a time right now with a proper ding-dong battle. I certainly haven't seen them touch fenders yet. I hold my breath.
I was going to say, you want to say that one again?
Yeah. I haven't seen them. It's been very, very clean. And again, here at Hockenheim, you've always got that kind of opportunity at the hairpin to go for a dive and get a move done clean. So yeah, really, really good to watch. It's just at the front, Parkins and Halls trading really, really quick laps. Again, half a second quicker than Crisp. So yeah, you can see them way down the road. And with 4 and a bit minutes to go, is Ryan Parkins going to sit there and just take the points, or is he going to have a go? Knowing Ryan like I do, I think he'll be perfectly comfortable. He thinks the one thing about Ryan Parkins is he does think the long game. So he will be there all season long, make no mistake.
Yeah, well, I think we've got 10 weeks, haven't we? Which means 20 rounds of racing, basically. And to be honest, if you score second in every single race, the realistic thing is you're probably going to come away with the championship in your hands, aren't you? Because it's unlikely if he finishes in second place every single round that somebody else is going to finish first every single round. And the close racing, the close qualifying times that we've had in this first race of the season probably shows that there's going to be a mixture of drivers all on the podiums throughout the season, which is fantastic. And as you say, for Hockenheim, you know, it's awesome to see. But the cars may evolve. People might get more used to the cars as well. It's the third time lucky, but I'll say it again, the week 13 obviously updates. We don't know, do we, Pete, how it's really affected the cars to the greatest extent. We can read the patch notes and everything like that iRacing put out. But realistically, we have to have high-level drivers come in and tell us just how it's affected the car on not only a qualifying lap, but a long-haul race as well. Maybe just a 30-minute sort of hybrid in the middle of a sort of slight endurance race compared to a sprint race. And all those sort of things add up to a very interesting conversation, which I'm sure we'll have with probably either Gavin Halls or Ryan Parkins if they come in to have a little bit of an interview in between race 1 and 2. And if they can't get in for race 1 and 2 because there's not enough time, well, then after race 2, I'm sure.
Yes, we will. We will do our best to get a chat with the guys. I have heard musings that the car is a little bit heavier on its tyres. And of course, it's majority of the time it is used for sprint races. So that's interesting that you have to think a little bit more about the tyre. So let's see how it pans out over the course of the season. And of course, it will depend from track to track as well. So we should be taking the white flag next time we go by. Yes, we will. So when Gavin Halls and Ryan Parkins come round to the start-finish line, it will be the last lap. So it's last chance saloon for our drivers if they want to move up the order. Brilliant start for the Porsche Sport team. 4 drivers out of the top 5 in there in Porsche Sport colours. Team boss Luke Holroyd here made his way up to 12th position, so just done what he usually does, make sure to avoid all of the carnage as best as he can, and just pick up places where they come.
The reason why I focus on Luke, sorry there, Pete, is because I just wanted to point out the 3 runners, the 2 runners either side of Luke and Luke himself, because Paul Godden has gained 16 positions from his starting place. He's in 11th place, just ahead of Luke. Luke Holroyd has gained 13, he's in 12th, and 15 places gained for Wayne Palmer as well, who's in 13th place. So those 3 have done fantastically well, and obviously we focused a lot on the front lot, who have just started their final lap of the race. But realistically, we have to give a bit of a shout out to the midfield runners who have really done well, avoiding contact and running consistent lap times as well to stay in that fight for the top 10. So congrats to those 3 drivers.
Absolutely, really big plus to big props to Paul Godden as well, because he was struggling in qualifying, had a couple of spins. So to run this, it's a long race, 30 minutes. To run that cleanly, very, very impressive indeed. Now, here comes Chris Walsh and Matthew Crisp. They're still at it, side by side, down towards Parabolica and down towards the Spitzker. Crisp says, I will have that inside line. Thank you very much. Chris goes, oh, well, outside for me then. Going for the cutback, using that classic Porsche traction, using that 4-litre flat 6 engine all over the back wheels. Use that traction to accelerate off the slow corners. But Crisp is trying to make that car as wide as he can. Walsh goes to the outside now. Crisp on the inside. Going for the cutback again. Crisp goes slightly wide. That'll give Walsh an opportunity. Just a tiny touch there. Oh, a little dab of the brake for Walsh. He's going to try and go for the cutback again. He's now got the inside for the run up towards the Mobile 1 curve. We're on to the last lap. It is last lap. And Walsh just sneaks by. Can he get the move sealed up? Yes, he can. Can he keep it now into Sachs curve? Yes, he can. What a move there. But your winner of the opening round, the inaugural round of the Simracersworld European Porsche Cup is Gavin Halls. He flashes the lights in delight. Ryan Perkins comes through and oh, no. Oh, dear. Walsh and Crisp have come together on the second to last corner. So that puts Carl Sharkey on the podium. San Bentham 4th. Lewis Ward 5th. Chris Walsh eventually gets over the line in 6th. Matthew Crisp in 7th. Oh dear, Jack. That, it was so clean until it wasn't.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find... Let's have a look at it as the other drivers come across the line. Here is Chris Walsh, and oh dear. It's disappointing, isn't it, really? Because they had raced so well before that, hadn't they? I mean, I made my little joke about the touring cars and Porsche racing, the difference between them. But apart from that first lap, it's been, from what we've seen, very clean, very respectful. And that's not what we like to see. I don't know. I don't think it was on purpose there, Pete. I think it was just a bit of an overzealous braking move by Matthew Crisp potentially, but it's obviously not worked out for either of them. Losing out their podium positions, but they're still in the top 10. Matthew Crisp finishing in 7th place and Chris Walsh finishing in 6th. But still, bit of pill to swallow. But I think Porsche Sport will be pretty happy with it, realistically, because although Chris ended up down in 6th place, they have locked out the top 3.
They have, yes. A podium lockout. I don't think they have any reason to complain, that's for sure. So wait for Jakub Szymanski to come over the line in the number 11 car. Gasses it up and takes the checkered flag. Well, a dramatic finish there. That battle was going on. It's a pity because it was such a good battle all the way through the race. And just a slight little mistake there under braking from Matthew Crisp. I'm sure it will all come out in the wash, as they say. So let's have a look at our results then. Gavin Hoyle's your winner by 0.2 of a second from Ryan Parkins, with Carl Sharkey rounding out the podium. Sam Bentham was 4th, followed by Lewis Ward, Chris Walsh, Matthew Crisp, Miguel Freitas, Austin Greatorex, and Mark Woodhouse. Good recovery from Austin Greatorex after early problems. Paul Godden finished 11th, a super drive for the Sim Stickers driver. Luke Holroyd finished 12th, followed by Wayne Palmer, Lee Damer, Jaco van der... Now, I've forgotten his second name. It's not coming on the screen. Jaco, the Dutchman. David Fuller finished 16th, followed by Michael Blake and John Barnes.
Sorry.
19th today in the 19th was Neil Heckins, followed by Niles de Kuiper, Jason Rowe, Adam McNally, Paul Riga, Jakub Szymanski, Adam Delmont, Craig Schill, Ewan Marshall, and Jeroen Kaiser. So that is the first round done of the Porsche Cup, the Simracersworld European Porsche Cup. The driver's now out on a 7-minute warm-up session, and we'll be back racing again very soon. Jack, your summary of the opening round of the season.
Well, I'll tell you what, I reckon the standard of racing is probably as good as I've seen on iRacing recently. I know we had that little incident at the beginning. Those incidents at the beginning, but that's just first lap sort of excitement, isn't it? First series, some people like to try and win it on the first lap and the first corner. Doesn't always work that way. But then from then on, the next 27 minutes or whatever it was after that first lap was pretty sensational. And I think the fight, obviously, Gavin Hoyle's that recovery, I wouldn't say recovery drive as such, but the drive to catch up to Ryan Parkins, who looked relatively untouchable in qualifying after putting in that really fast lap early on. Gavin Hoyle's sort of chasing through, and then obviously Parkins ended up only 0.2 of a second away from him. It was actually a point where they were like less than 1/10 of a second away from each other, but we were so busy looking at that Chris Walsh, Matthew Crisp fight on that last lap that we couldn't quite cut to it in time. Luckily, nothing happened and it finished as it was. But yeah, great drive by them. I think although we saw the crash at the end, Walsh and Crisp obviously had a real good battle between them, and Sharkey and Bentham as well had good fun. Lewis Ward recovered also to the top 5. So that sort of top 7, I think, had a fantastic interest throughout the entire race. But like I said many times before, and I probably will again in the Porsche sort of Simracersworld Porsche European Cup, anywhere you look, there's always going to be excitement and people recovering their own little battles and stories. So very much looking forward to it. And hopefully we can have a chat to a few of the drivers if they want to have a jump in and have a chat to us.
Well, they will certainly be very welcome here in the broadcast booth. We'll be delighted to have them. So, a different format now for the feature race. We have a 40-minute feature race where the top 20 will be inverted. So it's a partially reversed grid. So that will mean that our race 1 winners, Ryan Parkins, Gavin Halls, and Carl Sharkey, they will start deep in the pack and will have to negotiate the argy-bargy in the opening couple of corners. And one of the secrets I've always said to Ryan Parkins' success in the Porsche Club of Great Britain Championship, where the second race is a complete reverse grid, is his patience. We'll see that, I'm sure, Jack, coming through the pack, but not taking any chances there and making sure he keeps the car nice and clean going through there and booking the points every time.
Well, I think that's important, isn't it? Because a lot of people see full reverse grid, and depending on what kind of driver you are, sometimes your heart sinks, and sometimes you think, oh, that'll be exciting. And if you're a spectator, most of the time you sort of lean on the exciting sort of aspect of it, don't you? But I remember when I was racing in the G40s and everything like that, I would always sort of come to the third race of the event, which was the reverse grid. I think top 10 reverse grid or anything like that. And my heart sank just a little bit because we had so many problems off the line with people a bit too desperate to keep their sort of place and sort of go for their moment of glory. What the good thing about this grid is I think that we have such a high level of driver, most people will be pretty accustomed to running at the front, whether it be in this series or different series that they've been racing in. So I don't think we're going to have any of that, I suppose, immaturity or sort of lack of racing experience. I think we'll get a good drive. And you're right, Ryan Parkins will probably be one of the calmest heads on the grid. He'll be starting in 19th place, so he'll have to be. And he'll just try his best to sort of not go full on, straight away. Try and pick his points off. It's a long race. 40 minutes is a long time. Realistically, that's about 20 to 25 laps. It's plenty of time for him to pick off 10, 15 places if he needs to.
One thing that I've just noticed as well is the track temperature. 50 degrees centigrade track temperature. Now, what does that mean? That means it's going to be very slippy and slidey for our drivers. When the track temperature is excessively high, that means that the tire just does not work at its best. It overheats and it gets very, very greasy and slippy. And a 50 degrees Celsius track temperature is very, very high indeed. So that's going to be Jack, that is going to be tough for the drivers. Over 40 minutes, they'll have to start with a pretty big fuel load on as well. This is going to be a long race to manage and really take your time and bed in, because those Michelin tires, are going to be dead by the end of this.
Yeah, well, I mentioned, didn't I, sort of halfway through that race, you almost have a peak, don't you? If anybody's ever looked at sort of a statistic or a graph of tyre performance, it starts off very cold and very low on performance, and then there is sort of a peak where it's using its optimum sort of temperature, and the best drivers, they always make that peak last a little bit longer than the rest, don't they? They sort of plateau it a little bit, so it's a bit of a flat top curve, if you imagine, on a graph, and that's going to be key. You want to keep that temperature, that Y on the graph, that temperature nice and low, so you can sort of keep that plateau for as long as possible. And that'll be where driving style really comes into its own sort of thing. You need to be smooth, not only on the steering input but on the throttle input as well, because the rear tires get chewed up like nothing else in a Porsche 911. And the front tires, obviously, you don't want to turn in too hard, because the rear tires will snap. They'll lose grip. You'll spin round going into entry and on exit as well. So it's all about smooth processes. And in fact, actually, I thought we were going to have to fill for a lot longer, but we're about to go into the second race there, Pete.
We are indeed. Just a slight drop in track temperature, which is nice, but still very hot indeed. So, Niels de Kuiper will start on pole position alongside Neil Heckens, with John Barnes and Michael Blake on row 2. David Fuller and Jaco will start on the third row, with Leigh Damer and Wayne Palmer on row 4. Luke Holroyd and Paul Godden round out your top 10. Mark Woodhouse and Austin Greatorex start on row 6, with row 7 hosting Miguel Freitas and Matthew Crisp. Chris Walsh, Lewis Ward, Sam Bentham, Carl Sharkey, Ryan Parkins and Gavin Halls round out the top 20. And we can hear revs rising. They rattle off the limiter and we are racing. No hanging about here. The drivers want to get going with this 40-minute feature race as de Kuiper and Heckens go side by side and they make contact and they're broadside across the road. Oh my goodness me, this will be a nightmare for avoidance. One of the Porsche sport cars there off on the left-hand side. I think that's Greatorex, and oh my goodness me, it is unbridled carnage at turn 1, and it all triggered with those two front spinners, Heckens and de Kuiper.
Yeah, you know what I said about the first corner action, about how I don't think it's going to be chaos. Well, you can scrap that and put that in the bin, can't you, unfortunately? But I think it was just over-eagerness, wasn't it? Just trying to get on the power. Maybe the drop in track temperature, didn't quite occur to them as much as maybe it should have done. And obviously, it's been a long time since they were on cold tyres. Obviously, the first race was quite a long time ago, but what it has done, John Barnes and David Fuller moving up a couple of positions each, taking the race lead. Leigh Damer for Excite is currently in third place, Jaco van der Plat in fourth. Rounding out the top 5 is Luke Holroyd, the driver you mentioned quite a lot, as John Barnes goes wide. David Fuller goes through into the lead of this race. Lee Deemer might have a look as well, but I can confirm a few of the drivers that were involved in that. Paul Godden for Sim Stickers. Ryan Parkins was in 25th now, so he's dropped down the order. Niels de Cooper was the driver on the front row of the grid who ended up falling down, and so was Austin Greatorex, has lost 16 positions, down to 28th and in the pit lane.
Ah, that is really unlucky for Austin Greatorex. That's two lap one, corner one incidents, neither of which his fault. I mean, when you get the leading two cars spinning and being broadside across the road, there is just an air of inevitability, unfortunately. So we get away. This is going to make a completely different complexion to this race. Fuller leads from Barnes and Damer. And Luke Holroyd is there in 5th position. And Gavin Halls has made a great start from 20th on the grid. He's up to 12th, so he's avoided the problems. So after winning race 1, and with Parkins appearing to have hit problems, great news for Gavin Halls.
It is indeed. Yeah, Adam McNally, Austin Greatorex and Paul Rieger are unfortunately all in the pit lane. Ewan Marshall hasn't actually taken to the grid at all this race. So there are your 4 drivers that have dropped out. 26 still running, although obviously the drivers in the pits could come back out as Lee Deemer looks at the inside of John Barnes. And I think he's just about got that nailed as well. John Barnes for Quantum Racing drops down to 3rd place, ironically where he started. Jaco van der Plat is in 4th now, looking for a little bit of excitement again amongst the podium sitters as well. But you're right, a fantastic start by 12th place now, Gavin Halls. But Jerome Kaiser, just ahead of Gavin, has gained 17 positions of the start line. He's currently sat in 11th place and in the thick of it to try and gain some more.
Yeah, great start for Jeroen Kaiser, for Team Mad. Very impressive indeed. And he's got some allies up ahead of him. He's got Mark Woodhouse in 6th and also Miguel Freitas in 7th. So a number of the Team Mad cars there. It's Lewis Ward having a look up the inside of Freitas at the Sachs curve. Can he get the move sealed up? Freitas just has to back out of it. That's good stuff there from Freitas. But, oh, I thought Benham was going to have a look there and try and pick his pocket. Carl Sharkey at the back of the field. At the back of this pack, I should say, not the back of the field. Doing, well, we don't call him Caravan Carl for nothing. He's right there in the toe. He loves it. As Gavin... Gavin Halls coming onto pit lane very slowly indeed. Yeah. So what is that all about?
I'm not entirely sure. I just saw it. Maybe he can't run with the car that damaged, but that would be surprising considering he was running pretty well in 12th position. Maybe he jumped the start. This is the first time or the second time maybe that the drivers have gone past the start-finish line. Maybe he jumped it. Maybe he got a drive-through penalty. Not entirely sure, but what we can confirm is that he is in the pits. He's down to 25th position. So all of a sudden, the race 1 winner is down, maybe out. But another thing we can confirm is they're trying to go 3 wide into the hairpin. Luckily, think better of it, potentially. Sam Bentham now leads Carl Sharkey and Miguel Freitas 8th, 9th and 10th.
So just a little update on some of the rules. The drivers have a 55% fuel limit, so I wonder if they'll actually need to make a pit stop in this race. So that might be that Gavin Halls is trying to get out of the crowd, take his pit stop, take a fast repair. Drivers have 2 fast repairs to use if they want. So I wonder if maybe Gavin's going, right, I'll come out, get out of this melee, take my fast repair for any damage that is there, get the pit stop done. Interesting.
Well, he came back out pretty quickly, so there's every opportunity. He was only stationary in the pit for 30 seconds, pardon me. So there's every opportunity that you're absolutely right. Austin Greatorex has got back out on track as well, just about on the lead lap, but it's not going to be too pretty for him. He's been sat still for about 2 minutes 53 seconds. So I'm not entirely sure how he is on the lead lap actually, but it says it, so fair enough. But you're right.
I think.
Yeah, so if there is a potentially a pit stop mandatory, basically forced by the 55% fuel, then that could really shake things up. And if so, I think Gavin Halls with clear air could have a right good run and get some clean lap times in, and maybe he'll be straight back up in the top 5. You never know.
Well, let's keep an eye out on that. That's going to be fascinating to see how that one works out. As Ryan Parkins is... Oh, now, he's actually increased the value of his Porsche 911 GT3 by taking the rear wing off. He's turned it to touring specification, which, of course, is all the rage this week.
Yeah, he's...
Could you imagine being a Porsche salesman this week with all these customers who come out the woodwork being like, all right, mate, can you sell me a GTT Touring? No, I can't. Go away.
Well, he's certainly trying to make his name for himself, isn't he? As three of them go into one corner, Ryan Parkins actually comes out okay, and that's probably one of the few corners that he's not missing his rear wing for, to be honest. But as he builds up the speed and asks for the car to produce some downforce, it's probably nudging him back, going, come on, have you forgotten? I haven't got a wing anymore. Can you slow down a bit, please?
Well, it's going to be rapid in a straight line, that's for sure,
Well,
but it's going to be pretty... Yeah, it's going to be pretty awkward. Pretty awkward on the corners, and you can see, yeah, just Ryan Parkins, a bit of a sitting duck there, as whoa, the Phaetons goes by, but then Parkins comes back at him again. I wonder maybe if you're Ryan Parkins, you want to come in and do the same thing Gavin Halls has done, get that fast repair, get that car back up to 100%, because that has got to be an animal at the moment. Does Parkins come in? No!
Oh.
That's a collector's item. Oh my goodness. Oh, Ryan Parkins has had a disaster here. Now, is he going to try and get into pit lane, or is he going to carry on? He is going to carry... No, pit lane.
Yeah, straight into the pit lane. Not
Oh,
racing with
dear.
that spec. No, very interesting. Actually, if you just have a quick look at Ryan Parkins and how he actually ends up with that lack of rear wing. Here he is spinning off.
Oh, dear.
Does he get collected again? Obviously, he was part of the melee, which is pretty hard to dissect at turn one. Not entirely sure where he loses. Oh, no, there we go. It's hanging off, and there we go. It falls off now. So some rabid fan will probably be running over to try and ask if he can get Ryan Parkins' rear wing. We see that in touring cars all the time, don't we? If it was real-life racing, that's for sure. But Lewis Ward gaining 11 positions and making one more on Mark Woodhouse against the Team Mad car. Lewis Ward slots his way through, already fighting for top 5, so he's already equalled where he came in race 1, even after a full 20 reverse grid.
Yeah, this is a bit more like it for Lewis Ward, but still David Fuller leading out front as we're getting up towards 1/4 distance. And these guys looking very comfortable. Lee Deemer for Excite Racing, the Welshman, looking very comfy indeed. And this is almost a matter of survival in this long race, high track temperature, so very, very slick and slippy, very easy to make a mistake. Now, just up ahead, there is one of the Porsche sport cars. I wonder, that's Paul Riga. So Paul Riga, a real bruising race meeting for him after such a strong qualifying.
Yeah, it is, and a few more drivers have jumped into the pits as well, so I think some going for early pit stops along with that maybe damage limitation. Ryan Parkins, I think, is back out on circuit, so he did go into the pit. I think he's refueled, he's come back out. He's now in 24th position, just behind Matthew Crisp, who is the leading driver, who has taken a pit stop all the way down in 23rd position at the moment. Though, however, having said that, Michael Blake, Chris Walsh, Neil Heekins and Chris Wood have all just jumped into the pits now, so we're starting to see drivers and strategies start to take place as Lewis Ward is on the attack against Jaco van der Plat. And I tell you what, Lewis Ward is not hanging around, is he? Maybe he's... Because here's a theory for you, Pete. If they are having to come in for fuel, does that mean maybe you go harder on the tyres, come in and stop, take a little bit longer in the pits, change the tyres and get back out? Or is 40 minutes maybe not long enough to try and take advantage of that? Again, something we could potentially ask the guys in the interview box.
Yeah, the thing is that the fuel and tyres are done separately, so it takes such a long time to change the tyres that it's not really worth it from what I've seen anyway in this length of race. But of course, I always find you also maybe 50. It's very tight on fuel. If I don't know if you'd be able to actually fuel save and be able to get on without a stop. I don't think so. I think you would need to come in at least for a splash, but just a tiny splash at the end leave you a very short amount of time in pit lane, and just right at the end where things have spread out a little bit more. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see. What is interesting, I'm just looking at the pit lane times. Gavin Halls was in the pit lane for 33 seconds, whereas in the pit stall, I should say, for 33 seconds. Whereas Ryan Parkins was only in for 6. So, very interesting why Gavin Halls was in the pit stop for so long. Could have been a jump start, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Or maybe he had some damage that he decided that he wanted to take care of, or in the fact that, for what I do quite a lot, tell you what, Lewis Ward, every time we go away from him, we go back a lap later, he's taking one other driver and he's already into the top 3. Yeah, what I quite often do, completely by accident as well, I don't mean to have it done when I go into the pits, is some people forget to select to have their damage not repaired. And if you don't do that by the time you get into the pit, then it will automatically repair any superficial damage that might not be affecting your lap time too much, but they'll do it anyway. You need to unselect it in iRacing, which can catch a lot of people out, myself included, as a bit of an amateur. So maybe Gavin Halls, I'm not saying he's an amateur, but maybe he made that slight error, and that's maybe why he was sat in the pit lane for a bit longer, when he only needed a splash and dash. Maybe they were like, oh, well, we'll just change your wing mirror for you, sir, and that will take an extra 20 seconds of the race. Thank you very much.
Maybe it was. Maybe it's like that. Would you not like to subscribe to this email that's going to annoy you 3 times a day? Would you not like to do that? Untick this box if you would not like to do it.
Sounds like a Monty Python sketch, doesn't it? Really?
It is a bit. Yes. It's very like a Monty. Now we can see Van der Plaat has gone into pit lane to take his stop. So the amount of cars that are taking pit stops, it obviously shows that, absolutely stretching fuel save and avoiding a pit stop altogether is unlikely to be an option. As Sam Bentham just lets off the brake, can he get the move done there on Woodhouse? No, Woodhouse gives him the room and then shuts the door hard and said, "That's enough room. That's it. Room's done," and shut the door. Great run again for Carl Sharkey. Of course, got on the podium in race 1, up to 7th in this race, and doing what Carl does, just knocking out those consistent laps.
Yeah, exactly, and he's actually just watching the sort of drama unfold ahead of him. As I say drama, that's a little bit of drama, isn't it? Because Carl Sharkey now just dives with the inside. Thank you very much, lads. One of you can lock up, one of you can go wide, and I'll just take advantage. Mark Woodhouse actually ended up, keeping that position in the end, but it did look like there was a bit of a cascading amount of errors, which Carl Sharkey was taking advantage of. Well, he got one position out of it, and like you said, the Porsche Sport, realistically, they need a couple of drivers to try and get some points for them, don't they? Because it's not been a fantastic race for them so far, although they locked out the race 1 podium. They've only got one driver in the top 10 at the moment. They've only got one driver in the top, trying to find the next one, top 20, and is Carl Sharkey flying the flag for Porsche Sport.
We do. Well, yeah, indeed. Of course, we've got Luke Holroyd, who's in the Porsche Sport awning, but with running Strasse Porsche colours. And then we do have Chris Walsh in 17th as well. He's up. He's there as well. But you're right. Completely different complexion to compared to race 1. As you see, Sharkey having a look up the inside at Nordkurve. That's gutsy, to say the least. And they've broken away quite a bit from Bentham, who, so Sam Bentham's thought, right, I'm not getting involved in this argy-bargy, I'm going to take my pit stop and get out of that. That is, I tell you what, these feature races are going to be fascinating on strategy. Just basically planning that pit stop correctly is going to be critical, I think.
Yeah, well, it could. In fact, actually, just before people get angry at me in the chat as well, I did momentarily forget that obviously the Porsche Sport drivers, the majority of them have taken their pit stop early. So there's every opportunity that they could come back in the top 20 as well. But you're right. I think it could almost depend on the track as well, which drivers might decide to go slightly different strategies. There's an opportunity, like we go to Le Mans, say. I've actually sort of forgotten off the head whether we are going to Le Mans, but there's every opportunity where you can fuel save at Le Mans, because the amount of time where you're basically on full throttle in the slipstream, you can come off the throttle slightly, stay in the same sort of gap between you and the next car in front, and just save a bit of fuel. Just save a little bit more than you might at other circuits, say Alton Park, or other circuits like that. So the tactics may change depending on which track we go to as well. So you're right, the 40-minute feature races are going to be absolutely fascinating. Lee Deemer's got into the race lead ahead of David Fuller, gained a little bit of a gap as well. We missed that one. And actually Lewis Ward has caught up to pretty much both of them, but especially David Fuller, to try and gain his 14th place off the start and into second place.
Looks like a matter of when rather than if here for Lewis Ward. He's got a super run there out of Nordkurve, and Fuller just goes, I'll have the inside line. If you want to go past, you will be going the long way around. Oh, and very late in the brakes, and that actually pushed his Damer out a little bit as well. Whoa. Oh, dearie me. No, sorry, my apologies. Damer a little bit further up the road. That car's a lap down. Flashes his lights. Ward through to second then. Really on the charge. But of course, I think when we get to some of the higher speed circuits where the draft is going to be so important, particularly for that fuel saving, I wonder if that's when we will see the teams working together a bit more in the race. We see them working together in qualifying, but particularly in the race, you know, it might end up being like a kind of cycling peloton with the domestique doing the hard work at the front.
Well, again, I mean, I was covering a series on SRW with the SRW NASCAR series with Hassa, and NASCAR and oval racing runs a sort of semi-similar as a peloton-style race, isn't it? It's very interesting, and again, I'm excited to see how these races develop over the course of the season as we watch Sam Bentham. Now, this is important. The reason I cut to this is because Sam Bentham is actually the leading driver who has done a pit stop. So we have Sam Bentham. I think he's just overtaken, he has Jaco van der Plat, who is second place provisionally on pit stop strategy anyway, followed by Matthew Crisp. Now, we're not entirely sure how they're going to line back up once the drivers ahead of them have done their pit stops as well. We're not that quite that quick at maths and all that sort of thing, but it should be interesting. And the fact that Sam Bentham is here, overtaking, got good pace, running close to the top 10 without pit stops, is quite, you know, remarkable and quite impressive as well, I have to say. So expect to see Sam right up there in the thick of it come the end of the race, or when everybody has done their mandatory pit stop.
Good spot, Jack. Very good spot indeed. And interestingly there, Van der Plat moving aside to allow Matthew Crisp through, to allowing his teammate to get a chase, because Matthew Crisp will be wanting to get onto the back of Bentham. Whoa, who's that off? It's Craig Schill off onto the grass for Westech Autosport, and oh, can he get back going again? Chris Walsh just scampers by, said, ooh, trying to get past. So Chris Walsh not far away either. You can just see up ahead Bentham and Chris, but Walsh in the fight as well, and it's going to be fascinating to see what Lewis Ward's pit strategy works out with, as well as Leigh Damer, and that is Ward now to the front of the race.
Yeah, it is. We missed the overtake, I think, but I think we can probably just have a quick look at it, as I was expecting a big dive at the inside, but actually, I think Leigh Damer just missed his braking zone, ran a little bit wide, didn't want to snap the car by trying to rotate the front end and stick it into the corner with too much speed. Knew that he'd probably end up spinning it on entry, so he just let it run a little bit wide, accepted that maybe Lewis Ward was inevitably going to overtake him, and just try and use him to maybe get it ahead and get a bit further afield from David Fuller. He has got a 1.4 second gap now, and if you can just use a little bit of slipstream from Lewis, and then there's every opportunity maybe that could extend to 2 seconds, which could be crucial when they all start taking their pit stops.
I tell you what, Lewis Ward is really dropping the hammer here now, and that slipstream will not last long. I think it's already more or less broken. Lewis Ward, this is his race to control now, and with clean air ahead of him, he wants to run this tank absolutely as dry as he can, use all that clean track space to deploy his pace, and if he can do that, he'll just have a very short pit stop and then a little splash and dash to the end. So all going on schedule for the number 26 of Lewis Ward. Matthew Crisp, having been let by his teammate Jaco van der Plat, he is right on the case of Sam Bentham now. I'm just trying to think now, Jack. Just having a look to see where our race one podium guys are getting on. Gavin Halls, he's up to 20th spot. Ryan Parkin's 2 spots ahead in 18th. So there's a number of drivers in front of them who have pitted. So they've both got work to do to try and get as far up the field as they can, get some good points, and proving that race 1 wins are one thing, but doing it in the reverse grid is quite another skill set entirely.
It is indeed. This is the fight for provisional first position, you could argue, although Lewis Ward would probably argue against it. But at the moment, Chris and Bentham definitely want that lead status of being the leader on the drivers who have provided their pit stops. The more they fight, though, the more they're sort of leaning towards Lewis Ward. So just having a look, I think it takes about 30 seconds in the pits time. Obviously, that doesn't include the ruining of the next straight as you come out the pits, because your momentum has been ruined, basically. But it takes about 30 seconds, and these drivers, just trying to have a look at how far back, I think they're about, Lewis Ward is 35 seconds, 36 seconds ahead of Sam Bentham and Matthew Crisp at the moment. So that is going to be very close, isn't it? If Lewis Ward does run the tank completely bone dry, Crisp and Bentham keep fighting between themselves, all of a sudden Lewis Ward could almost get a free pit stop out of this and still have about 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds left to spare coming out in the race lead. It's going to be crucial to keep an eye on that.
It will be, yeah. I think really this is Lewis Ward's time to drop the hammer now. He's really got to try and put in some quick laps, consistent laps, not break away from his pace. And yeah, looks like Matthew Crisp and Sam Bentham are going to have a bit of a ding-dong here, and that will kill their lap time. There is nothing worse for lap time than a side-by-side battle, which is exactly what's happening here. You can see Matthew Crisp not on the line you would take if you were in clean air, because he's defending here from Bentham, and Bentham's going to go for the cutback, and Crisp has to give best, losing big chunks of time now. So Bentham goes by now, and this is, if you're a Lewis Ward fan, this is absolutely fantastic. The track temperature has climbed back up again, 48 degrees centigrade. So this last portion of the race is going to be really hanging on by the fingernails.
Yeah, well, the air temperature's gone up as well. I think it was on 27 degrees when we were talking about it last, and it's up to 29 now. So no wonder the track temperature's on the rise as well. With all these Porsches flying around it for the last 22.5 minutes is definitely going to be hurting the tyres, like you said. And the more these guys fight, the more attrition they're putting through the tyres, the more heat they're putting through the tyres. And the more heat they're going to be putting into their radiators as well, to be honest. Because Porsches are built like no other race car I've ever seen. I mean, I've been around racing for a long time. Tom's raced the majority of the stuff we've been watching. As Sam Bentham gives a little back end loosey-goosey there, that's not going to help the tyres at all. But the easily the most reliable car, and he probably won't thank me for saying this because obviously he races for BMW at the moment, but the most reliable car we've ever had, it's absolutely bulletproof, was the 2 years that he spent in Porsche. Not once did anything happen mechanically that just failed out of nowhere. We've had it a lot with other manufacturers, but Porsches were absolutely rock solid. And I know this is the virtual world, but I still think you like to take that sort of across slightly and give those comparisons. You know, it's although the Porsches were rock solid, if you just touched the front end of the radiator grille, it would all of a sudden ruin all the cooling, because that's how far up the radiator grille is in these cars. But by the looks of it, these cars are absolutely rock solid on the sim just as much as they are in real life. And we're hoping that nobody has a little scuffle and ruins the engine temperature, because it is running hot at the moment.
Yeah, very hot indeed. And you can, the iRacing simulator does it does simulate a blown engine. If you don't treat it correctly, you can blow the engine, which is quite dramatic. It actually gives you a heck of a fright if you do it when you're driving. It's like it's just a big bang, and smoke pours out the back of the car. So another quick lap there from Lewis Ward, a low 142, and John Barnes parked in the middle of the circuit. So not good news for the 777, has to take to the grass to get out of the way. Oh, just loses it. Oh, now that is, you're right, Jack, these typical Porsche, very well built, these cars, but typical Porsche, a real pendulum swing, and when it gets away from you, it's gone.
Well, that looked like he got a little bit too much throttle on with a little bit too much steering input, and I think the tyres are a little bit chewed up as well. It's like driving on chewing gum once the tyres have overheated and everything like that. You need to work hard to bring it right back down to the lower temperature in the tyres. Very difficult when we're talking about high track temperatures, and temperatures in the car will be getting a little bit frothy, as we've just seen. It's getting a little bit harder to. The red mist has dropped down a little bit. I don't think that was angry in the slightest, actually, but either way, it's still getting a little bit hot under the collar there for Mark Woodhouse, unfortunately. Carl Sharkey and himself going a little bit battling, and I think that was a back marker, actually. I think that may well have been Niels de Cooper, who has actually just made contact there with Woodhouse. Yeah,
I think Niels is a lap down, so he's just about 10 car lengths behind, completely innocent party. Mark Woodhouse gets moved around. He thinks he's clear, and then woof. Oh dear. That can happen.
I don't know about you. I don't know what your setup's like, Pete, but have you got triple monitors or VR or anything when you're driving? Because I've just got single monitor, and it is difficult to see side to side.
You're absolutely right. It's the one thing you do have is that iRacing is a really clever kind of live box on the right hand side of your screen, which is called the relative, which gives you a kind of live timing to where you are to the car in front and behind, and that can help you to know if there's a car in your blind spot. But yeah, I totally agree with you. When you're racing wheel to wheel, either the virtual reality headset obviously gives a great impression, makes you want to throw up though, but I've tried it once, never again. And or what all the pro sim racers appear to have is the triple screens. So it's sort of 3 monitors, one in front and one either side, and that gives you a good kind of wraparound view. But yeah, single monitor for me. It is slightly curved, but that's more for space than anything else.
I was going to say, I've done virtual reality. I'm actually the world's worst racing driver in real life as well. I actually make myself car sick. So virtual reality is a big, big no-no for me. And genuinely, on my final race in Ginetta Super Cup, we were at Brands Hatch and we did 8 minutes out of 15 minutes race or something under safety cars. So you had to continuously warm the tyres up because it's mid-October or something ridiculous. And genuinely, 2 laps from the end, the safety car was about to come in. I thought I was going to have to come into the pit and just basically see my lunch again, shall we say, right in front of the BTCC pit. It was that bad. So virtual reality is a huge no-no for me. But yeah, triple screens by far and away, in my opinion, the best way to go. But I'm just running single monitor as well, so who am I to say?
Yeah, the triple screens is very much the pro choice from what I understand. So just under 13 minutes to go here at Hockenheim. So we're getting into the business end now. Chris Walsh now back. Well, now this is his race 1 sparring partner's teammate, Jaco van der Plat. And Van der Plat not quite on the same pace as Matthew Crisp, so you would think that maybe Chris Walsh will make short work of this, but it might get a slowdown penalty for that. That was using a lot of the curb on the inside, but no, carries on. Luke Holroyd into pit lane, so he's taken his mandatory pit stop. So this is where we're going to see a number of the late pitters coming in, and we'll see how that one shakes it out. Riding on board with Chris Walsh, with the and I believe he used to be in the army, so he's got the camouflage overalls. I like that.
Yeah, it is very funky, isn't it? And he's doing a good job of braking as well as he gets past Jaco van der Plat, and that is, at the moment anyway, a provisional podium position for those of the drivers who have come in for a pit lane. And you can see, if you've been watching the timing tower on the left hand side closely, you can see these drivers are starting to inch their way up the timing towers as more drivers start to come into the pit lane. So I think when we sort of first pointed out the Crisp and Bentham sort of fight that's still going on ahead, by the way, fantastic to see, they were all the way down in 16th 17th position or something. Well, now they're fighting over 7th place overall. They've got John Barnes ahead of them, who needs to come into a pit. He's only 3 seconds, so he's going to very quickly get out of the way. But crucially, the gap between Matthew Crisp and Lewis Ward has gone up from about 35 seconds to 38 seconds. So as long as Lewis Ward doesn't have to do any superficial repairs or anything like that, at the moment, his pit lane time should be only about 32 to 34 seconds. Means he'll have a good 4-second gap at least as he comes out of it.
Yeah, looking good right now for Lewis Ward, and played this one very well, kept the car clean, got himself to the front, and is now really making the most of that open air, whereas you've got to think that maybe Sam Bentham and Matthew Crisp have held one another up a little bit in the mid part of this race, which could really cost them. But we'll see. A lot can happen over the next 10 minutes. This is the real danger part. This is where the tyres are well past their best. The temperature's still high. The drivers now have actually done a lot of mileage because, of course, they had the 30-minute sprint race. This is the 40-minute feature. But I guess Jacket... Whoa! Bentham makes a mistake there. Big lights up the rears going through Parabolica, and that's given Crisp a really handy respite. But the drivers will have done a lot of mileage tonight because no doubt they'll have done quite a bit of practice before we came into the races today.
Yeah, exactly. But just like a proud fisherman, that was a hell of a catch by Sam Bentham, wasn't it? It was very close to just completely losing it, and we've seen plenty of people completely lose it out of a lot of corners just under throttle, and Bentham managed to just feel what the car was doing through his steering wheel, which is an impressive skill in itself, something that I fully admire for sim racers. How difficult it is just to feel the car when you're not actually sat directly in it, something that I'm very much struggle with, and you feel everything through the wheels. So the fact that he felt that and came off the throttle and caught it was very, very impressive, it has to be said. But yeah, you're right, a lot of these drivers will have definitely been getting a little bit warm now. It's a warm day, no matter where you are. If you're in England anyway, it's a very warm day. And Matthew Crisp is British, so I'm going to assume that he's somewhere in Britain. And it's been very warm. I don't know about what it's been like for you in Scotland, but I know for certain that if I had done a 20-minute qualifying session, a race one like Matthew Crisp had, and then a race two like Matthew Crisp had for another half an hour, I'd be absolutely sweating buckets. So very impressive that he's running at a good, clean pace for this amount of time.
Absolutely, totally agree. It's warm for Scotland. That would probably be the best.
It's about 7 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. I'm up at Knockhill at the weekend. Who knows what will be blowing through the valley? Will it be fry your head into pieces, or will it be chill your bones? I don't know. It can be both on the same day. But honestly, no better place to be than up in the Gary Stagg commentary tower at Knockhill. It is paradise. And we've got, can't wait, we've got the Legends, we've got pickup trucks, we've got, what else have we got? Super Lap Scotland starts as well this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, reverse on the Saturday, and clockwise on the Sunday. Really looking forward to it. I tell you what we had, Jack, we had a brilliant Caterham meeting at the weekend, the Caterham Festival. Those things race so well.
Oh, Caterham's a fantastic thing, fantastic races, aren't they? And I know the classics are obviously extremely pretty to look at, and they do produce some good racing and everything like that, but there's just something about watching Caterham just go fully at it, full send through. I imagine Knockhill is sensational for the Caterhams as well. I mean, sensational for most things, but I can imagine, especially on the for the Caterhams. It's actually quite criminal. Of all the years we've been racing, of all the years Tom's been racing up at Knockhill, I've only ever been once, and it's because I was racing in the Ginetta Super Cup a couple of weeks ago. But it was mid-August, and I had 5 layers on the top of my body just to try and keep warm. So it sort of explains why we probably haven't gone very often. However, it quickly became my favourite racetrack to drive. It was absolutely sensational, and no wonder why drivers love going there and why you love commentating it. It is just sublime, as has the racing we've been seeing here at the moment, actually, because obviously we've gone on a bit of a tangent. We sort of missed out on the fact that Mark Woodhouse just put a move on Ryan Parkins, and these guys are having a good little ding-dong, as well as Parkins, obviously, is a calm head, like you said, trying to sort of rescue a little bit more of a result here, but still, enjoying himself fighting against a good competitor in Mark Woodhouse.
That he is, yes. He's he's gone for the counter move here. Has Ryan Parkins? Woodhouse goes a bit wide. Are they going to come back together on the exit? No, it's going to be a side-by-side race now down towards Spitzker. The very, very tight first gear hairpin. It's so tight here. Who's going to be later on the brakes? Is it going to be Woodhouse? Is it going to be Parkins? Oh, they're absolutely neck and neck. Looks like it's going to be just Parkins who pulls it up to the apex and takes the point. So, up into 12th position. So it's not been an ideal reverse grid for Ryan Parkins, but after that absolute melee at turn 1, could have been worse. As our 3 leaders are now into pit lane. Ward, Damer, and Fuller into pit lane. So let's keep an eye then on Matthew Crisp, because he is the first of the non-pitters, if you like, in 4th position. It's got Sam Bentham right behind him. And already Lewis Ward coming out of the pits. So he's in a perfect condition. Gasses it up. The number 26, Lewis Ward, with 5 minutes to go. He is in cruise control for this motor race. But can Damer and Fuller get ahead of Crisp and Bentham? No. I think Lee Damer maybe. Oh, it's going to be very close. Is he going to be able to shut the door on Bentham? Oh, just gets by. So Lee Damer then drops back 1 spot, but still on the podium.
Yeah, he is, and Bentham will probably be quite good about that because I was actually just keeping an eye on the relative, and he was very close to Matthew Crisp. Dima somehow came out and just slotted right in between them, and I'm not kidding, there was about 0.3 of a second that he could have slotted into, and that's exactly where he's gone. However, having said that, Bentham is looking up the inside now into the hairpin, late on the brakes. Dima knows what's coming here, which he goes a little bit wide, didn't even attempt the cutback to be fair, and slots in behind Bentham, so we were right. But I tell you what, I was wrong with the gap, wasn't I? Lewis Ward is a full 11.5 seconds ahead of Matthew Crisp. So I guessed about, I don't know, 4 seconds or something. But it was an absolute stellar stop by Lewis Ward. But the most important thing is he built up that gap well early on, didn't he? Because he got through the field really cleanly, really consistently. And all of a sudden, you know, Bentham and Crisp doesn't help if you keep falling over each other, does it, if you're trying to go for a race win? But still, you can't take much away from Lewis Ward. He's driven fantastically. He's gained 15 positions and pitted and still finished out where he came into the pit. So fantastic for him. Although the race isn't over yet.
No, not over yet. But Lewis Ward has driven an absolute stellar drive for the Team 11 driver. And they just got a couple of about, I would imagine 3, possibly 4 laps to go here at Hockenheim. In fact, yeah, call it 3. And he will be home and dry. As you can see, whoa, a bit of argy-bargy going on here. Paul Riga, it's a number of cars a lap down. And they'll need to look in their mirrors now because they've got Matthew Crisp and Sam Bentham right behind. That's Niles de Kuiper. Craig Schill at the back of shot there as well. Matthew Crisp straight on the headlight flasher. It looks like, again, Matthew Crisp has made his way through the traffic. That's that little bit more efficiently.
Yeah, Bentham's under a little bit of an attack here by Dima, and it doesn't really help Dima the fact that there is cars on the outside of him, because it means that he can't try and get the cutback very efficiently. Bentham was always going to go for the defensive inside line, but Dima was forced to go for the same line, thanks to the fact that there were a few little bits of traffic here, there and everywhere. They're coming up to Paul Rieger now. Is Paul going to be effective in getting out of the way? We'll have to wait and see, because Matthew Crisp is going to be the first to experiment with that. Obviously good pace here shown by Matthew Crisp, but there we go, the Porsche Sport driver just jumped straight out of the way. Paul Rieger not messing about there, sees the blue flag, sees who's coming up and just thinks, yeah, well, that's not worth it. Let's not make enemies this early on. We've had a bad race, we'll recover and go into the next one.
Yeah, definitely the best thing to do it. And funnily enough, in the iRacing rules, the blue flag is shown as advisory. You don't have to get out the way. But it's very much a good idea to do so. It's very much good etiquette, if that counts for anything in motor racing, but yes, it does. So yeah, important to allow the leaders to come through and get on with their races, and that's exactly what Paul Rieger did there. So I think we'll be it'll be quite close to see if this is the last lap or one to go after this one. Depends when Lewis Ward took the over the start line. It's wide, very wide there for Matthew Crisp. Gets in a little bit hot on the brakes. That'll allow Sam Bentham to get a good run, and the closer he gets, the more slipstream he'll get. So this will be a cumulative effect. So here comes Bentham.
A little bit of an on-board with him. It's not quite quick enough, is it? The slipstream is not quite effective enough to get him on this lap. And as you said, we don't know whether it is going to be the last lap or not, unfortunately. But Lewis Ward, what I can say is he's got about 12 seconds to spare. If he wanted to just lift off and waste 5 seconds just to finish the race now, then, well, he could, couldn't he?
He could, yes. He does have that option open to him. I wonder if he'll take that up, actually. So, yeah, was it interesting there? Sam Bentham, so tidy through the Spitzker hairpin. Really neat on the brakes, tucked it into the apex nicely. Very, very neat and tidy. Beautiful to watch, actually. So, it's going to be very, very close. If we pick up our leader, Lewis Ward, coming into the stadium section, I think it might actually go for one more lap here. Oh, it's going to be very close indeed. Does he back off? Does he? Heck, he wants to race some more. White flag. Barney said, I've got it in my hand now. I'm flying it. So you're going round one more, Lewis. I don't care what you do. So Lewis Ward gets a bit of a lap of honour here. And one more lap to do. And that means one more lap for Sam Bentham to try and get one over on Matthew Crisp. Now, this will be interesting for the championship context as well. Because, of course, Crisp finishing in 7th, so a third and a 7th if he were, sorry, a second and a 7th if he was to finish where he was. But Carl Sharkey, a third and a 6th for him. Tell you what, the championship is going to be remarkably close coming out of this meeting.
Well, it will be, because not forgetting that Lewis Ward got 5th place in that first race as well.
Yeah.
So he's got first, provisionally anyway, and a 5th place. So I think Lewis Ward could come out with the championship lead at this rate. I'm not sure. You've got the script in front of you there, Pete. I don't know if there is a point for fastest lap or qualifying or anything like that. I should know, but unfortunately I don't, because I'm too busy looking at the cameras to look at the rule sheet. But it's going to be interesting. I think Lewis Ward will probably come away with it, but it's going to be awfully close. And the drivers you would expect to see, Ryan Parkins down in 11th place at the moment, and who won it is Gavin Halls, wasn't he, all the way down in 19th position. So although some good performers, not necessarily going the way for race 2.
No, and I think that will be the key to the championship. Race 1, you qualify at the front, you run away. But race 2 is about getting through the grid. But Lewis Ward has done that. A brilliant drive from the Team 11 star. And the number 26 car, he comes over the line and wins round 2 of the Simracersworld European Porsche Cup. What a drive from Lewis Ward. And it looks like Matthew Crisp is going to hang on for 2nd position in the Alcantech car. Sam Bentham roaring over the line in 3rd. Damer 4th. Fuller 5th. Carl Sharkey finishing 6th. Great meeting for Carl Sharkey. A 3rd and a 6th. And Chris Walsh in 7th. Good meeting for him too. A 6th and a 7th. So there's going to be, regardless of how the points work out, it's going to be very, very close between a wide cast of drivers. And let's see how that one moves on throughout the season.
Yeah,
well,
fantastic race though, wasn't it? I mean, well, both races were pretty sensational, and we're very pleased to have all these drivers involved. And I tell you what, although it's not necessarily the way the likes of Ryan Parkins and Gavin Hall was hoping race 2 would go, it does keep it interesting in the championship, doesn't it? Because we've seen 3 different drivers on the podium in both races, haven't we? We've seen, well, 6 different drivers basically on the podium overall, and it's only been round 1. So if this keeps up, then this is. I tell you what, this is why 1, I love sprint racing, and 2, I love single make racing as well, because it comes down to the driver. There's a little bit of rub of the green as well, but there's so much more than it's just sort of pure out and out sprint racing. Has some magic to it, I think.
Yeah, it does, that's for sure. You definitely know who's been the absolute fastest driver on pace. So, and that driver in this second race was certainly Lewis Ward, winning by 13 seconds from Matthew Crisp and Sam Bentham rounding out the podium. Lee Damer was 4th, followed by David Fuller, Carl Sharkey, Chris Wolf, Jaco van der Plat, Adam Delman, and Miguel Freitas rounds out your top 10. Brian Parkins from 19th on the grid comes up to 11th, but a difficult drive for the King Hippo. Chris Wood was 12th, followed by Mark Woodhouse, Neil Heckins, John Barnes, Michael Blake, Paul Godden, and Wayne Palmer rounds out our first 18 drivers. Gavin Hall had not a good second race for him either, starting 20th after a race 1 win, finishing 19th, with Jeroen Kaiser rounding out the top 20. Jason Rowe, Austin Greatrex, Milan Phaetons, Paul Riga, Craig Schill, Niles de Kuiper, Luke Holroyd, and Jakub Szymanski round out the 28, with Adam McNally and Ewan Marshall not making the start. Obviously a late problem there for Luke Holroyd, Jack, because he was running up the kind of more top end of the field, so maybe had an incident later on.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I'll try and have in fact, we can actually have a look at it now. Let's have a quick glance. Yeah, if we got a TV, if we got an actual angle. In fact, that's a bit late to the party, so let's go a little bit further back. And have a quick glance at Luke Holroyd, just while we wait for 3 drivers maybe to come in and have an interview. And
no,
there was a collision there, wasn't there? And then, to be fair, it looked like Holroyd was going for the racing line, but you can't go for it if there's a car in the way. Michael Blake.
It would be interesting to get, it'd be interesting to get another look at that as well, because it looked like the car's been held relatively straight. Let's see, holding the wheel straight, holding the wheel straight. And then you're absolutely right, Jack. Moves across. I don't know if... I think he maybe thought he was clear there. Sack the spotter.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a bit because the track does curve, and what I will say is that Michael Blake doesn't come off the white line, does he? You can see that his car was dead straight, and Luke Holroyd almost went to straighten the car with the curvature of the circuit, but he didn't leave enough racing room for Michael Blake, which is why there ended up being a bit of an incident. And that was pretty much just as the checkered flag dropped as well, so it was the last lap of the race, which is a big shame for Michael Blake and Luke Holroyd, unfortunately. And just, again, that vision, as he said, sack the spotter.
Sack the spotter. He's like, you're clear on the left. No, I'm not, Jim. No, I'm not clear.
I know that because I'm in a wall.
I can assure you we're not clear. That is a pity because it was a good meeting up to then. Well, we have our race 1 podium finisher, Ryan Parkins. The King Hippo returns. Ryan Parkins, welcome to the Sim Racers World commentary box. How was that? First round of the Sim Racers World European Porsche Cup Series.
Hello. Thanks for having us. Yeah, it was good. Race 1 was really good. What really wasn't expected to get pole. Everyone's been much quicker than me, but I just had a clean lap, I think. And the start of race 1 was really good. Oh, you're showing race 2. That's not good. It was great fun actually. It's really hot temperatures. You've got to be really careful to keep the tyres like really cool and like a nice little window. I let Gavin go because he was much quicker than me, and I didn't want to back us up into the pack of the guys fighting behind. But done really well. Thanks, Gav, for the setup. He's worked really hard on it.
We were surmising on that one, Ryan, or whether it was just missing the break point or allow Gav through. But he really was flying in that opening race. That is for sure. Now, more important question, Ryan, is: are you regretting letting a pair of Scots free on an open bar tab at your wedding?
I did really wonder where the 29 martini espressos come from on the tab.
On
At the end. It wasn't you; it was everybody. I hope you enjoyed your Tunnock's tea cakes as well.
You know what? They were very, very helpful for the drive up the next day. It's great to have you back on track. Does this signal a return to more back to normal times, back on the sim, Ryan?
Yeah, potentially. It's just midweek one's a bit awful. Oh, I just get taken out by netcode there. It's not very good. I'm a bit delayed, but I think so. Maybe I took off from March for work. Now I'm working a bit closer to home. Hopefully I can make these evening races, and maybe the weekends. But yeah, I need permission from the wife.
Well, that's the most important person now. How is the good lady, the good Mrs. Parkins?
Oh, she's not. No, it's Priscello. Still.
Oh, okay.
Mrs. Priscello. No,
Careful,
she's great.
Pete.
She's working.
I know.
Yep. Yeah. How's Lucy? Is she all right? Is she okay? Anyway.
Very well. Yes, very well.
Anyway, do you want to talk about racing?
we can't. We could. Yeah, we could. As well. It's gonna be a thrilling season. Who of your Porsche Sport teammates do you think is going to be the biggest threat?
Well, I was thinking about this in the last 10 minutes of this race because I wasn't really doing much. Gavin is just super quick and he's well up there. Chris Walsh, he is a hard charger. He'll just keep he'll go past anything. But Carl Sharkey, I think he's probably leading or he's second or third in the points already. He's just consistently there. First round he was third. I think he just finished 5th or 6th here. Just extremely. He's always there. He's lurking behind. So I don't know. So we got also, but Paul done a cracking lap as well. Austin didn't have a great round, but yeah, Porsche Sport doing well here.
They certainly are. Well, Ryan, as always, it's always a pleasure to chat. Thanks for coming in to join us, and we'll see you at the next round, hopefully.
Ciao, guys.
So that was Ryan, the King Hippo Parkins, joining us, Jack, and looks like that is all we have time for tonight. Final thoughts, Jack, before we sign off from this opening round of the Simracers World European Porsche Cup.
I suppose my final thought probably would be the fact that I'm very excited for next week, to be honest. I mean, I know you have obviously been commentating on Porsche racing for a while with Simracersworld. This is one of my first forays into it. It's been a pleasure to work with you, Pete. I've just realised I spelt your name wrong on the graphic there as well, which is lovely from me. But hopefully we provide fantastic racing, and I'm very much looking forward and enjoying the format as well, because as you said, we've had 6 different drivers on the podium. The 40-minute with the enforced pit lane just gives us something to talk about, something to keep an eye on. Yeah, loved it.
Yeah, it's been an absolute privilege to be involved with this series, and do join us next time, the same time next week, 7:45 p.m. British Summer Time. Join myself, Peter MacKay, and Jack Oliphant for the second round of the Simracersworld European Porsche Cup series. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Simracersworld TV.